tonight we are moving on to the sixth and ninth commandments, which have to do with chastity, adultery, and general covetousness. So basically, wanting things or people that are not ours, and not respecting the institution of marriage. So, first and foremost, God is love, and God has created us in love and called us to love. And the greatest expression of that here on earth is the love that is demonstrated within marriage between a man and a woman, and then the love that they extend then to their children. So, obviously, adultery is very harmful to that. It's harmful to the love between the couple, and then it also harms the family unit. Jesus called people to go even a step further than that. Don't just avoid adultery, but try to avoid lust in general and like wanting other people besides your spouse. So we are called to have a deep, profound, and selfless love for our spouse. That's the intensity and the importance of this is one of the reasons why within the Catholic Church, marriage is both looked at as a vocation or a calling from God, and it's also a sacrament, which gives it special grace and special blessings, and also a great deal of responsibility. So men and women have some similarities and some differences. They're equal in the eyes of God, but the balance of joining a man and a woman together in marriage echoes the love of God and the church. It says in multiple places in the New Testament that God or Jesus is like the groom and the church is like the bride. So Christ and the church being referred to as like a marriage metaphor, that love is expressed in marriage here on earth between husband and wife. So even before a marriage exists, people are called individually to live chaste lives. Basically, this has the result of allowing somebody to keep themselves focused on their purpose and their goals, being able to make sure that they are treating others and themselves with respect, and that they're practicing their passions in moderation, so they're not letting their passions or their feelings rule their lives. So intimacy is an extremely important part of the marriage relationship, but it should be reserved for that marriage relationship because it really helps to build up that lifelong commitment that spouses have for each other. It also means that being able to have that commitment, it helps us too with our self-awareness, self-control, self-sacrifice. It increases our reliance on prayer and faithfulness and commitment to God, to our current relationship or our future relationship. It falls in line with the need for boundaries between people who are not married, and allows us to give ourselves in love freely when we are still single. It allows us to really give our love to our families, to people who are in need, and that it also allows us to give ourselves in love freely to our spouses and our children, because we're not distracted by anything else, any other type of passion or intimacy with another person. Sometimes people choose to live their whole lives this way. Priests, nuns, brothers, they're all called to live lives of celibacy so that they can love and serve the public in a way that is completely undivided. Some people choose just to remain single throughout their lives for that same purpose, but without being vowed or ordained. And many people marry and practice chastity as a part of faithfulness in their marriage. So sometimes people think that chastity just means not being intimate with anybody, but in reality, chastity also means being faithful to your spouse. It means really having a lot of self-control and self-regulation as to your commitment, either in your singlehood or then to your spouse. Obviously, especially in today's society, there's a lot of challenges to that. Um, there is a lot of, between TikTok, music videos, um, pictures on Instagram, fashion today, different things like that, advertisements. Um, we see a lot of skin. Um, we see a lot of the opposite gender in movies and TV shows and things like that. So obviously, lust, pornography, that type of stuff is a huge challenge to chastity, both outside of marriage and within marriage. There is obviously a push in today's society for people to not wait until marriage to be intimate with somebody, and that kind of peer pressure can make it difficult to maintain a chaste lifestyle. There are instances of prostitution and things like that where you have a system that really hurts both parties. And then, of course, there's also the case of rape, which is actually not really a sin of chastity, but more of violence towards another person, which is also always, 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 under any circumstance, gravely, gravely sinful. We also have today, especially, conversations around like homosexuality, transgenderism. The church kind of balances this by stating that although those types of choices are not condoned, we don't support same-sex relationships, we don't support transgenderism. We do, however, recognize that this is often not a choice of the person. It might be an inclination that they feel, but that those people are then called to live in chastity in the same way that other people are called to, that unless you're engaging in married intimacy between a man and a woman, you shouldn't be engaging in any type of intimacy beyond that. But above all, respect for human dignity reigns supreme. So people who are living this lifestyle or experiencing that attraction are still supposed to be treated with respect, compassion, care, and not discriminated against. Chastity in marriage, which we've touched on a little bit, allows somebody to be generous, to engage in mutual love and giving of oneself to another person in marriage. It allows for faithfulness as two people are united in one flesh in marriage, and fidelity and faithfulness within marriage echoes the faithfulness of God to us and the faithfulness that we are called to have to God. And then having children within marriage is something that is recognized as a gift and a responsibility. However, parents are allowed to space out births or limit the number of children that they do have with natural family planning. Couples who are dealing with fertility problems are able to use different medical options. They're also encouraged to adopt. And any people who are not able to have children within their marriage, that's looked at as an increased ability to provide service and charity to other people, using the time and resources that they would otherwise have spent on their own children. Some of the specific challenges to marriage itself are, of course, adultery, which breaks the marriage promise. It violates the rights of the other spouse. It undermines the whole institution of marriage, and it really compromises the children in the family unit. Divorce is also a huge thing. Divorce rates are very high in today's society, but in the church's eyes, marriage cannot be dissolved between baptized people except by death, or something that's called an annulment, which basically states that a marriage could be seen as invalid in the eyes of the church if the person did not enter into the marriage with complete freedom or complete knowledge of their spouse or the marriage commitment. The church does recognize that in certain situations there's a need for civil divorce, to protect legal rights, to protect somebody from violence or abuse, to be able to protect one's inheritance, to provide someone with proper care. But without good reasons, divorce works against the family unit. A spouse who's been abandoned is still in good moral standing because he or she did try to remain faithful and remain in the marriage, and their spouse chose to abandon them. But overall, marriage is so holy, and it is a sacrament within the Catholic Church, that civil divorce does not equate to divorce within the church. So someone can be civilly divorced, but they'll still be considered married in the eyes of the church without an annulment. Polygamy, of course, is also not allowed by the church. It makes the power balance and the dignity of the different spouses, it really throws it out of whack. Incest, of course, is really unhealthy. It corrupts family relationships. There should be no sexual abuse, not between spouses and not between parents and children. And people should try to avoid cohabitation, living together without being married or having children without being married, just because it does hurt the long-term commitment of the couple. And sometimes it can create an unsure atmosphere where people don't know, they don't feel confident and comfortable and secure in the attachment or their relationship that they have with their partner. And then, of course, the 9th commandment, which we move into more specifically, there's an intense human desire to have or own what belongs to someone else. It's called concupiscence. So basically, or concupiscence, sorry, it's a very weird word. But basically it refers to the purification of the heart within a person, where they see each person's body as a temple of the Holy Spirit, and that person's body is reserved for a loving relationship within marriage. And people should encourage modesty in their dress, their speech, their thought, their looks, their actions. Patience and moderation within relationships should be encouraged. And people should really, although we should never really try to be envious of what someone else has, it's very important to avoid coveting someone else's spouse, both for the sanctity of their marriage and also the sanctity of one's own marriage.